Welcome to the Speak Your Success podcast. Family, here we are with another episode of the Speak Your Success podcast. I'm serial entrepreneur, TEDx speaker, and best-selling author Jonathan Jones. And today, I'm so glad that you came back and decided to join us. If this isn't your first time, if this is your first time, however, we are glad that you are here today. Before we even get into this episode, we want to announce our sponsor, JCI Creatives. If you're looking to truly allow your photos to speak more than 1,000 words, then JCI Creatives is the way to go. They show us how to brand responsibly, but ultimately their superb customer service is always the best place and one of the core values that they hang their high hats on. If it's your next corporate shoot, or if you're even planning for your big special wedding day, and you want that dream to come to a reality, then make sure to visit jcicreatives.com or download their app. And once again, that's J, the letter C, and the letter I, and then Creatives is where they will make those dreams come true. For our review of the week, you know how we like to start. We like to just show love to those who have been showing love to us, the faithful followers and those faithful listeners who take the time to go into Apple and leave us a helpful review, go into iTunes and leave us a helpful review. The first view for this week, this is from Ashley N. Miller 5, and she said, "I love Jonathan's podcast. It's a great listen on my daily commute. It's the perfect combination of insight and humor. I especially love the self-help and entrepreneurship themed episodes. Keep being great, Jonathan. You inspire me." Thank you so much, Ashley. That really means a lot. Understanding the work that I know you do with the students who are special needs students, and you having a heart for those individuals. I definitely think that speaks volumes about you and just the type of person that you are. So we thank you for taking time to leave that review. In the next review that we have, it says, I'm new to the podcast world, and this one has really gotten my attention. The Monday motivations are a great push to start the week. Jonathan not only gives relatable messages, but applies them to himself. It shows that he is just as down to earth and that we all can do something different to become our best selves in life. Thanks for that, Mr. Glenn Regals. That really means a lot, sir, because here on the Speak Your Success podcast, we try to keep it real, we try to keep it relevant, and of course, being honest, because I wouldn't want to tell you information that I haven't tried and tested myself, or if I'm through the midst of being tried and tested myself, I have to just keep it real because I don't want to be somebody who is different behind the mic than I am in person. So thank you, Miss Ashley N. Miller, and also thank you, Mr. Glenn Regals, for taking the time to leave those reviews. Those really mean a lot. And the love and support is so real because all of you who have left a review and all of you who send DMs and send encouraging messages through my text, you are definitely the bloodline that flows throughout this podcast, and you all have been showing out. We're now at 56 reviews, and if we keep up this pace, then we're set to reach 100 reviews before 100 episodes. So I thank you all, and if you would like to be the Apple review of the week, I would encourage you just to go on iTunes, type in Speak Your Success, and from that point, you just click write a review. Leave us a helpful review, and then you would now be entered to be the Apple review of the week and get shouted out over the podcast. And if you haven't connected with us through our social, you definitely want to follow and give us a mention on Instagram, Twitter, or even Facebook. And the handle would be SYS Podcast 1, or use the hashtag SYSP. And that way we can put a name to your face, we can put a face to your name, and we can show love and just call you out on the podcast so that other people know who's rocking with us and so that everybody knows who you are. And now, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and transition into our Mental Health Awareness Month series. Last week we addressed depression, and we talked about that and talked about how prevalent it is in our society and our community. But today we're going to take a slight pivot, and today it's part 2, and we're talking about 5 things that you need to know when it comes to Mental Health Awareness Month. 5 things that you need to know. And this article is actually from Psychology Today. It's a few years old, but the content is still impactful and still powerful. So today, the first tip that we're going to start off with, and I'm going to post this article link in the show notes, as well as I will post the podcast that we've been listening to this week, just so that you can connect with those podcasts, so that you can give them a listen, and so that you also can leave them a review, because we love to share the platform and love to encourage others to speak their success, believe in their greatness, and create the life and business of their dreams. However, but we know it's all about encouraging others and pushing others to be great. So the first thing that we need to know coming up on being in Mental Health Awareness Month, the first thing we have to take with us and really hone in on is that mental illness is normal. Because individuals who are facing mental health issues have long felt different from others. Sometimes in movies, these individuals are often portrayed. The portrayal might be even what some might consider to be skewed. But just encountering individuals who have mental illness or family members who are affected by mental illness, we don't want these people to feel like they're foreign. We don't want people to feel that they should be ashamed to be a individual who has mental illness, because they're an individual just like us. And we all have our own struggles. We all have our own challenges in life, and understanding that we need to take into account those things. And here's just a few statistics. According to a study, it followed people around the ages of 11 through 38 and tracked their mental health. A mere 17% were able to avoid mental illness. And I'm not the best at math, but that would mean 83% were affected by mental illness directly. That's not even counting those members who might be affected just by an individual in their family, potentially having mental illness. And another statistic is 42% had short-term mental illness. These are some things that we just need to begin to think about in our daily interactions with individuals as we, journey throughout our lives and as we're moving past people. And oftentimes, I'm sure that we've drove on the freeway and we might have seen individuals who we realize that something might be a little different from that individual than ourselves in the car, and it might even be identifiable. But just because it's identifiable and just because we see those things does not give us the right to judge others, does not give us the right to feel that we're better than others, or even tear down and put others below ourselves. So let us just remember that through today. And as we continue to push through Mental Health Awareness Month, the second point that I want to share with us is gender can affect mental health diagnosis. Personally, I didn't even know this before taking the time to read this article. However, 1 in 68 children are diagnosed with autism, but the overwhelming majority of those children happen to be boys. This may be because providers fail to recognize the signs of autism in girls, perhaps. This may be because the statistics in the article went on to say that people with autism are said to appear to lack empathy or recognize social cues. And even in addition to that, according to this study as well, it showed that girls on the spectrum show outward signs of empathy, and researchers believe this is because gender conditioning to master social skills is shown to be stronger within girls. So girls with autism may appear to understand social cues even when they don't necessarily. So this is a really good point. I believe that's touched upon. Just as last week, I believe we touched on depression, and then we talked about how the numbers were where they ranked and the prevalence for depression was what it was. However, but there are many that may go under the radar because of different factors, like we see here, that young ladies with autism may appear to understand social cues as some boys may not. It may not be as clear just in their actions. And the third thing that we want to know about Mental Health Awareness Month would be worldwide. Depression is the leading cause of disability, as we talked about depression last week. But according to the data from the World Health Organization, WHO, the World Health Organization, it shows us that depression is leading the charge for disability. It's truly sad to say that the rate of depression is not getting better. And understanding that this article was written about 2 years ago, then that means the numbers have increased from that point. And people often do not receive treatment for symptoms of depression within these developing nations. You know, there may not be access. Some people might not even want to share that they might feel that they're having a battle with depression because, like I shared earlier, if you feel that this might be viewed as a weakness, you feel that others might begin to judge you, you feel insecure in just sharing this information because of maybe past interactions with different people, then that would not make me want to share if I had a struggle, if I had a problem, if I had a fight or something like that. Even when I shared in my own personal story, there have been many times where I might have felt inadequate or less adequate just because I felt that I was struggling with something, or just because I felt that I couldn't just put it on my back, put some dirt on it, be a man and just walk it off, and then eventually I'll get better. But these are things that we need to begin to just create a little bit of awareness around, to encourage people that taking the time to get mental help is making you, it makes you a stronger person versus a weaker person, because you understand that there's an area that you would like some further clarity in, to know how you would best handle some situations, to put you in the best position possible for your life as well as others, to protect them. And just one quick statistic. I just want to hit a quick statistic and then we'll move on to the next point. But between 2005 and 2015, the rate of depression has actually increased 18%. And like I said, this article was written probably about 2 years or so ago. And so if it increased by 18% from 2005 to 2015, I can't even imagine what the exact statistic would be currently. And the fourth point that we want to touch on would now be that mental and physical health are inseparable. It can be easy for individuals such as philosophers, scientists, and lay people of all varieties to separate the mind from the body, because this is what they've been doing for many generations. However, the research increasingly points to the link between the two, between our mental and our physical health. A few tangible examples would simply suggest that, one, chronic inflammation may cause depression. Some others have found that mental illness can affect physical health or lead to symptoms of potentially chronic pain. Exercise and the role it plays in fighting mental illness has been well documented. So those of you who might be struggling to take that time to get outside, to stretch those limbs, to get some fresh air, to walk around the block, or to take the time to go to the gym, do a spin class, do a workout, different things like that. These help, when you get that sweat on, then you are able to relieve some stress. And ultimately, like we're seeing here, it helps fight the battle against mental illness. Just another piece to document there. And speaking of stress, this is just a little caveat. I don't know how many of you all have done yoga before. Hello, somebody. But Grit by Fit, that's her name on Instagram, Grit by Fit. Grit by Brit, Lord have mercy. Grit by Brit is her name on Instagram. I did a yoga class yesterday because the proceeds that you donate go to the Genesis Women's Shelter. And I'm so sore right now. As I'm sitting here recording this podcast, my body is extremely sore, but I know that means I got a great workout in. So I'm glad that I took the opportunity to go out there and do yoga in the middle of downtown Dallas. It was pretty dope. So follow her on Instagram, Grit by Brit. Follow her and take the time to connect with some of those yoga classes. It was actually all women in that yoga class. I was invited by a really good friend, but it was all women. I was the only guy, and I felt so comfortable being there. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. We're going to move on from that. And just the last thing I want to share, and we're talking about mental and physical health being inseparable. There's an invisible line between the mind and the body. And understanding that our thoughts reside in the brain and the brain lives in the body. It's affected by what we eat, how we spend our time, and our overall health. So we must remember that mental and physical health are inseparable, despite what your mom told you, despite what your dad told you. But just remember those things because I said so. No, not because I said so, because it was on Psychology Today, and they're a very credible source. And I definitely have utilized them for some articles, as well as using them to pull some additional resources. So that is something that you would want to take account to or for. And number five, for the 5 things we need to know about Mental Health Awareness Month. Environment matters for mental health. And I specifically say environment matters because there's a discussion regarding mental health, and it's geared towards genetics, brain chemicals, and other biological phenomenon. And this has just showed us that the environment can affect the behavior of genes, just as we see in stressful and deprived environments. Can alter the way that genes behave, ultimately triggering mental illness. For an example, recent research has linked growing up with food insecurity to be an increased risk for mental health difficulties. And that's just, that's tough. And that this could even speak to, like I made mention of earlier, individuals we might see as we're driving down the freeway, or individuals we might see lurking around downtown. Some people might call them panhandlers. Some people might refer to them as homeless. Some people might refer to them as less fortunate. And if you then begin to think just on a base level, if you know that food is essential for our survival, and you know that you need to eat in order to live, and you know that you're not eating and you're not able to retain or to retrieve these nutrients, but you're only able to eat certain things because it's what you can get access to or what you ultimately can afford, then I can definitely see how this can affect certain areas of the brain. I can see how this affects your mind, and I can ultimately see how this affects you as a whole. So these are just some things that we need to begin to think about, thinking about the environment that we've grown up in, thinking about experience that we might have had to early childhood trauma, and think about the stress that some of us take on. People learning depressive thinking from their parents, for instance, or maybe even just experiences that you've had to go through as a child that some people feel that you shouldn't have had to go through, you shouldn't have had to face. And these ultimately all can leave a lasting effect on us regarding to mental health difficulties. So, friends, understanding that the first point, mental illness is normal. We have to realize that it's normal. It's all around us. It affects more people than we might even know, or we might choose to identify, and we might even try to deflect. But it affects us in a real way, and it's normal. The second point is gender can affect mental health diagnosis. So understanding that if your little son, or if your little daughter, or whomever it might be, your granddad, your grandmom, your mom, your dad, you, me, whoever, gender can affect mental health diagnosis. And third, worldwide, depression is leading the cause of disability. If depression is leading the cause for disability, that means there are a lot of people around us who are facing and fighting depression. And just like I said before, check in on people, see how they're doing. First, make sure your mental health is good, and then take the time to begin to check in with people and see how they're really doing, see how they're really feeling. Fourth, mental and physical health are inseparable. We just have to begin to remember that we need to take our physical working out. We need to take our diet serious. We need to be aware of the things that we're taking in and that we're eating. I believe that's why a lot of people are now transitioning to being vegetarians and living a vegan lifestyle, because they realize the value of what's going in their body, and they realize that for them to have great mental and physical health, they need to be aware of what they're putting in their temple. And lastly, environment matters for mental health. Parents and all of us alike, I would just like to encourage each of us to be aware of who's around us at all times, because there are children sometimes that are in the room when we're arguing. There are daughters and sons around us who hear these curse words and who hear these other things where we're speaking these things in front of our youth. We're sitting them in front of TVs. We're letting them hear radio play and letting them see different things on YouTube and playing all these video games and access to all these things. And I believe that contributes to our environment. And we want to be cautious of what environment we're putting these individuals in, because it can affect them long term. A short-term decision can have a long-term impact. So I just want to encourage us through that today as we prepare to move on to this next segment. This segment is entitled, "What Are You Listening To?" And this segment is just where we like to spotlight some other podcasts because we enjoy what they're doing. And these topics have been around the area of mental health awareness and self-help, just for the sake of the theme, with us doing a 4-part series on Mental Health Awareness Month. So the first podcast that we're listening to is Black Girl in OM. The podcast is entitled Black Girl in OM, and the actually initials of it are BGIO. And this is episode 37 I was checking out. And the topic was Let's Get Loved Up with Koya Webb. Koya Webb, from what I heard, she modeled for a little bit. She ran track. She was planning to be an Olympic track runner. So this young lady is gifted. Hello, somebody. And they began to interview her, and she shared her journey from being a college athlete and then ultimately now transitioning to where she's in this lifestyle of, she began to speak about her eating habits, and she also just began to really unpack her journey, sharing her challenges, sharing her struggles, and sharing what that was like as she began to process throughout her life. And she also shared about vegan. I believe she said she celebrated 3 years of a vegan anniversary, I believe is what she called it. But it was a really enjoyable episode. I really enjoyed listening to hearing the different perspectives and just the insight that they had to share throughout their podcast. And also the second podcast is entitled Affirm by Redefine Enough. I believe I titled that correctly. Affirm by Redefine Enough. It might be Affirm by Redefining Enough. I'll double check that. However, we're going to have this information down in the show notes. And this was episode 2, and it was entitled Self-Care, Soul Work for Survival. And Davia and Tashira, I believe I said their names correctly. If I didn't, ladies, please let me know. They take a deeper dive in providing not only resources, but also insights on self-care and unlearning. They help us unlearn in order to re-educate ourselves around the topic of self-care, because I believe self-care is something that's so huge. Because as I've shared many times on the podcast, I'm about a year away, once I get back into school, I'm about a year away from getting my master's in counseling, and understanding that counseling and self-care go hand in hand, because if you don't have good self-care, then ultimately you'll burn yourself out. And this is with anybody, not just counselors, but you will burn yourself out through life if you don't understand when is the time to take some time for yourself. So I would encourage you all to take time and listen to those podcasts, leave them a review, show them love, because they're doing great things. And anyone sharing their voice, I believe, is doing a great thing. So encourage them in that journey and encourage them with what they're doing. Now we transition to my favorite segment of every episode, and this is, somebody cue the trumpets, please. the Winner Circle of the Week segment. And this is when we identify an individual who is out here tearing it up. They're a mover and shaker. Sometimes they might be a millennial, sometimes they might not. But either way, we like to shine the spotlight on them. And the Winner Circle of the Week this week is none other than Miss Raquel McIntyre. She also goes by the name Hey Nurse Rocky on Instagram and YouTube, that is. She is a travel RN, so a travel nurse, you all. And she's a YouTube personality, which I've seen. I began to check out some of her videos, and this young lady is funny. Okay, she's funny, like authentically just funny. And just understanding that in the field of mental health and in the medical industry as a whole, you know, it's never the easiest place to be. However, Nurse Rocky, a.k.a. Miss Raquel McIntyre, she provides just the opportunity to show us of what the life of a travel nurse really looks like. On one of her most recent vids, she began to share some struggles with being a travel nurse living in LA and what that looks like for her. So in honor of it being National Nurses Week, which started on the 6th and it ends on the 12th, we saw that it would be quite fitting to recognize Miss Raquel McIntyre, a.k.a. Hey Nurse Rocky. So be sure to connect with her on Instagram at Hey Nurse Rocky and subscribe to her YouTube channel as well. And you just type in Nurse Rocky and then she'll pop up. I know she's doing a scrub giveaway, so definitely make sure to connect with her, give her a shout out, and see about getting more information about that scrub giveaway. And I'm sure she might do some other great giveaways as well. I don't know all the giveaway stuff that she does. I actually just met her this past weekend or 2 weekends ago because my two friends, Tammy Coker and formerly Afratina Anderson, now Afratina Coker, just got hitched this past weekend. So we're excited to celebrate their union. It was an amazing wedding ceremony. I was glad to just be in attendance and just to celebrate with them, because just showing what love really looks like in a real authentic form. I think it's really just powerful seeing these two get hitched, and I'm glad that I was able to be a part. So Tammy Coker and Miss Afratina Coker, I want to give you all a major shout out because I love you both, and I'm so excited to see what the future brings for you too. And now we're going to do the quote of the week. And the quote of the week simply reads, "Nothing can come to you until something comes from you." And this quote is by Kendall Fickling, none other than the great, some might call him Pretty Kenny. But this is my coach, and Kendall Fickling is an amazing dude. But really looking at the quote and thinking about mental health awareness and thinking about mental illness, in order for something to come to us, something must come from us. And understanding that growth is a painful process. And as I've said many times before, I've gone through counseling, and I encourage others to do it as well, because we all have a pain that resides within us, or we all have something that resides within us, and we need to release that demon. We need to get that thing off of us. And the only way to get it off of us is by us doing the work. So today, I want to challenge you to do the work in your life, whatever area of your life you feel like you're riding around on E, whatever area of your life you may feel like you're coming up short, if it be mental health awareness, if it be physical fitness, if it be you wanting to read and you wanting to learn more. I would encourage you to put in that time and invest that time and put an effort towards where you want to see yourself grow within your own life. And when you do that, then it'll seem like the world starts to open up. Then you'll be able to share your story with people. Then you'll be able to sit down and tell people how you made it through, because they need your help. They need your encouragement. Somebody needs to see your story, and somebody needs to see your testimony so they can know that they don't have to stop, and they can know they can continue to push through and be successful in their lives, friends, and family. So thank you for taking the time to rock with the Speak Your Success podcast. And if you would like for us to cover, first of all, a topic, or if you would like to book me for a speaking engagement, feel free to reach out to me if you wanted me to do a topic. You can send a DM to SYS Podcast 1 on Instagram as well as on Twitter. If you'd like to book me for a speaking opportunity, I would encourage you to visit jonathanjonespeaks.com, click the booking tab, fill out that intake form, and we will get you squared away. Also, if you'd like to purchase a copy of my best-selling book, feel free to go to jonathanjonespeaks.com/products, and I'll sign that bad baby for you, and I'll ship it out to you same day. Let's go. And friends, as we are transitioning out today, I just want to encourage you in this mental health awareness month that taking the time to go get help, taking the time to go see a counselor, taking the time to get with somebody and share with them what you're going through does not make you weak. This only makes you stronger, friends. So always remember, this is TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and serial entrepreneur Jonathan Jones reminding you to speak your success, believe in your greatness, and continue to create the life and business of your dreams. Why would you want to live any other way?